Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, just make sure to subscribe for future notifications. In this video, we are going to discuss one of the most important theories in educational psychology, which is social learning theory. In fact, it was Bandura's social learning theory that led to the development of one of the most popular teaching methods today, which is the problem-based learning method. And if you don't know what that is, make sure you check out our other videos. As educators ourselves, we have used various teaching methods, but the social learning theory is one that really stands out and produces amazing results when applied correctly. Before we begin, let me ask you a question. Have you ever thought about how much you learn from others and how their behavior influences your actions? For example, when you watch a YouTube video, you are learning something from the video creator. You might be learning how to cook a new dish or how to fix a broken appliance. Or maybe you're simply being entertained. But either way, you are still learning. This is because of Albert Bandura's social learning theory. Albert Bandura was a psychologist who lived between 1925 and 2021. He developed his own theory based on his observations of children. After he had observed many children, he noticed that they learned new behaviors by watching other people around them. For example, children can learn how to use a knife and fork properly by watching their parents or other adults. They don't need to be taught explicitly how to do it. The child will simply observe the correct way to use a knife and fork and then imitate their parents' behavior. That is why Bandura concluded that humans could learn new behaviors merely by observing others. And he called this process observational learning. So his theory is also known as social learning theory, or observational learning theory. According to Bandura, there are 4 main processes involved in the learning process through observation. These processes are known as attention, retention, reproduction, and motivation. Let's take a closer look at each of these processes. First is attention. According to Bandura, attention plays a very important role in the learning process. In order to learn something, you must first pay attention to what is going on around you. In the example we just mentioned earlier, the child must first pay attention to how their parents use a knife and fork properly before they can learn how to do it themselves. If the child is not paying attention or is distracted by something else, then they will not be able to learn the behavior. The next process is retention. Once you have paid attention to something, you must be able to retain that information in your memory. Retention is basically the ability to remember what you have seen or heard. For example, after seeing how their parents use a knife and fork properly, the child must be able to remember that information in order to imitate their behavior. Without retention, we would not be able to learn anything. We would forget everything we have seen or heard as soon as we turned away. The third process is reproduction. Reproduction is basically the ability to imitate or reproduce a behavior that you have observed. In the example we are discussing, the child must be able to reproduce or imitate the behavior they have observed in their parents. If the child is unable to reproduce the behavior, then they will not be able to learn it. The fourth process is motivation. Motivation is basically the desire to do something. In order for a child to learn how to use a knife and fork properly, they must first have the motivation to do so. If the child is not motivated to learn, then they will not be able to learn the behavior. There are 2 types of motivation according to Bandura: intrinsic motivation and extrinsic motivation. Intrinsic motivation is the desire to do something for its own sake. For example, a child might want to learn how to use a knife and fork properly because they enjoy eating. Extrinsic motivation is the desire to do something because of external factors, such as rewards or punishments. For example, a child might want to learn how to use a knife and fork properly because their parents have promised them a reward. Bandura believed that all 4 of these processes are necessary for learning to take place. If any one of these processes is missing, then learning will not occur. Now let's take a look at 10 examples of social learning theory in the classroom. 1. A teacher is teaching a class on fractions and uses visual aids to help explain the concept. Students who pay attention to the lesson and are able to retain the information will be better able to understand fractions. 2. A teacher is teaching a class on fractions and asks students to work in pairs. One student in each pair is a teacher while the other student is a learner. The teacher explains the concept of fractions, and then the students switch roles. The benefit of this activity is that the students are actively engaged in the learning process and they get to practice their teaching and learning skills. 3. A teacher is teaching a class on fractions and gives students some manipulatives to use as they work through the lesson. The use of manipulatives helps students to visualize abstract concepts and makes learning more fun and engaging. 4. A teacher is teaching a class on fractions and uses real-world examples to help illustrate the concept. This helps students to see the relevance of what they are learning and makes the material more interesting. 5. A teacher is teaching a class on fractions and allows students to use calculators to help them with their work. The use of technology in the classroom can help students to learn at their own pace, and it can also make learning more interactive and engaging. 6. A teacher is teaching a class on fractions and gives students frequent quizzes to assess their understanding of the material. By giving regular assessments, teachers can gauge students' understanding of the material and adjust their instruction accordingly. 7. A teacher is teaching a class on fractions and provides students with opportunities to work collaboratively on tasks. Collaborative learning can help students to learn from their peers, and it can also help them to develop important social skills. 8. A teacher is teaching a class on fractions and uses a variety of different instructional strategies to cater to the needs of all learners in the classroom. Differentiated instruction can help all students to succeed by providing them with the support they need to overcome their individual challenges. 9. A teacher is teaching a class on fractions and creates a positive learning environment in the classroom. A positive learning environment can help students to feel safe and supported, which can lead to greater academic achievement. 10. A teacher is teaching a class on fractions and models the desired behaviors and attitudes for students. Teachers should strive to be positive role models for their students. By modeling the behaviors and attitudes that they want their students to emulate, teachers can help create a positive classroom culture. So these are just a few examples of how the social learning theory can be used in the classroom. By understanding this theory, teachers can create a learning environment that promotes learning and achievement for all students. As you can see, social learning theory is a very simple but effective theory that can be used to improve the learning environment in the classroom. It is based on the idea that students learn from both their successes and their failures. When students are given the opportunity to learn from their mistakes, they are more likely to be successful academically. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please leave a comment below to let me know what you thought of the video. And don't forget to subscribe for future videos. Thanks for watching!